This week on Filthy Hope.
The city of David is very important because Israel managed to excavate the city of David, even at some points going under houses of people because people were living there and didn't want to move, which is understandable. So they went under the ground. And as the city of Jerusalem, it has been destroyed almost 30 times in its history. If you want to look for the remnants of that period, you need to go down in the ground anyway, because each time the city was destroyed, they would build this new city on top of it.
Good evening, Leotine and Alan, fresh from Jerusalem on this, what is your Monday evening and my Tuesday morning in Australia. Welcome to Filthy Hope Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation. This is
It's just absolutely a delight. And I want to, and thank you, Rob, my beautiful husband, for being here today. I just wanted to thank you, Leo, for the most incredible experience, I think, of my life. It makes me want to cry. I'm going to have to get my tissues. But, it makes me want to cry thinking about how epic the adventure was in Israel, and part to you. I'm just so grateful for you and how you gently led Rob and I through the old city. It was just, honestly, it was the adventure of my life. And Leo, you truly, I know you live there, and you you take those 2,500-year-old stones in the wall for granted. But
I don't.
For me, it was just
very amazing.
The stories that you brought to life, for me, a theoretical understanding and spiritual understanding of the holy city. And it's, for me as a minister, it's absolutely illuminated my teaching. Already I've been in the pulpit a couple of times since I've seen you, since we left Jerusalem, and I already feel different. I was saying to Rob and a couple of colleagues that I actually all of a sudden feel really legit. I feel like a legitimate minister. I know that sounds weird, but I think because I think I've been there. I've seen King David's potential tomb. I've seen Solomon's tomb. I saw the old city of David. I walked those fantastic steps from Kidron Valley up to Caiaphas's potential, where his palace was located. I saw where the cock crowed and in that vicinity, and actually heard bloody cocks crowing, roosters going.
Yes.
I mean, it was just an epic event. And then to go to the Holy Sepulchre and experience all of that. I actually had more trouble in that location, in those really Christian holy sites, than I did in the rest of Jerusalem initially. But you just absolutely exploded it for me into a palpable taste of
You got context. You got so much context.
Yeah.
Context, very deep
understanding.
Yeah. It's like the story may have been almost two-dimensional, and you also got this 3D depth to it.
Yes, that's good, Rob. Yeah.
The whole thing, you kind of stood there, you've seen the terrain, you've stood on some of these ancient stones, even, on the sidewalks and stuff that you can access.
It was amazing. Absolutely epic. You talk about in your other than just being a guide, both of you are professional guides in Israel. You have this incredible podcast called Yalla Israel, and I'll ask you to talk a little bit about that in a moment. But you say at the start, and I love your intro, you say, this is where you are going to talk about life and the history of Israel, past, present, and future. And I wanted to kind of use your motif to have our discussion today. Now, when I need to let our listeners know, when we met during the period of Yom Kippur. That was right, wasn't it, Leo?
Yeah.
We
was it? Yes. I think you were there a little bit before.
Yeah,
there was the slichot going on. So there was the prayers for asking sorry that are before Yom Kippur started.
It must have been after the Rosh Hashanah, the New Year, before Yom Kippur.
Yes, it was after New Year. And you were coming into that time of, I remember us talking about Yom Kippur. Could you maybe unpack that? Because I'm just, I don't understand it like you do, but I love it. I love the idea of forgiveness and repentance. It's a big part of who we are as godly people. Can you share about that holiday?
Yes. Now, first of all, I remember very well the few days that we spent together, and I'm very I just want to say that for us as tour guides, it's like a dream, to come true, that when people have this experience that you had, where they really feel things come alive. And I remember we spent a long time on Mount of Olives, where we started the first day, and how for you, it was such a revelation. So that you were for me also the perfect tourist, I can say so. Yeah, because you're very nice and fun, and also because it's so nice when you see the thing becoming true in the minds of the people that you're my random bursting into tears. And if I wasn't bursting into tears, Rob was bursting into tears. Yes,
because we'd have these aha moments, and I think that's partly because we're in the Holy Land, and it's a spirit-filled, exotic place of awesomeness and magnificence and majesty all around. That's how it felt for me. And it's that intersection of all of the faiths coming together. And I just think, I just can't wait to come back. I just cannot.
Waiting for you.
Yeah.
Maybe not now.
Not at the moment, but
no.
Yeah, we
somewhere next few years.
Yeah.
No, that's so Rosh Hashanah means the head of the year. And it's our new year, basically. And we start the new year with a very festive meal, and there's a specific service in the synagogue. And then as soon as the new year starts, we go into introspection, I would say. And during a period of 8 days, 8 or 10 days?
It's 10 days.
10 days, we are what you would call repentance, I guess. As English is not my but it's like a time where we start to think of all the things that we may have not done well during the past year, towards ourselves, towards others, and maybe also what others maybe have not done, what could have been better in the relation to us. And it leads up to Yom Kippur, which is the day of pardon, or the day of repentance, which is... So during that day, we fast for 24 hours, 25 hours. The extra hour is has to be mentioned because it's a long time to fast.
24 hours is nothing. It's that 25th hour.
Yes.
And Leotine, Alan talked about in your podcast that he was really struggling with giving up of coffee. And did you end up having a headache? Did you have the terrible migraine? I don't know how you gave that up for 25 hours, brother.
I did. And as in the podcast, you may recall, I never drank coffee. So I was a new coffee drinker.
Yes, that's what you said.
And I became obsessed with coffee. So for 5 years, I've been drinking a lot of coffee.
Yeah.
I never had a problem fasting on the holiday of Yom Kippur. until I was a coffee drinker, because then it was the withdrawals that I haven't. Yes, this year, I had the headaches. I had the headaches that I'd never got before I was a coffee drinker.
Yeah, it's a challenge. Yeah. Oh gosh.
So during what is very beautiful in a way is that before, we do it before Yom Kippur, but I guess everybody has his or her own habit. But the idea is that if you feel that you did something wrong to a person, or also like more in general, you will ask pardon to those that you are close to. So I remember that Alan sent me a WhatsApp, I think, like if I did anything wrong to you. And also, so you give forgiveness, but you also ask. So it's two ways. And when Rosh Hashanah, when the new year starts, the book of life is open. So this is in imagination. It's not like a book and there's a man with a big beard who's opening the book, but the book of life is opened. And with the sound of the shofar that I think you heard, the sound on the ram's horn, it's a very specific sound. And Yom Kippur, ends. The end of the day is when again they blow on the same ram's horn, and then the book of life is closed. And then basically only you know whether you were inscribed in the book, yes or no. So it's really a whole thing about conscience and introspection and thinking about what did I do last year, what do I want to do next year, that you know that whether yes or no you're inscribed in the book of life. So it's a very solemn, serious holiday, and at the same time quite happy. I would say I spent a lot of time in the synagogue this year. Not this year, I spent quite a lot of time, and there are times where they were dancing, because you're also very close to God. So it's the moment that you really feel very close to God, and it's true. Even though I like to protest always a little bit, I like to.
She's a rebel.
I am a bit of a rebel, so it is true that the fasting does bring you closer to God, even though at the moment self I don't understand it, because you're hungry, you're thirsty, you have a headache, you have to stand a lot, and you're carrying a prayer book that suddenly weighs as if it was 20 kilos, because you're tired. But it is true that with all this struggling, you do somehow get a connection.
Forced introspection. Somehow the process. While you think you're not going to be able to focus, you actually get a great focus.
Yeah. So it's
absolutely fantastic. And as lovers of God, we've got so much in common, Christians and Jews. We do, in the Christian faith, we believe in fasting as well. We fast also, because we were, Jesus was a Jew. It's a part of what we do. And I'm not a fan of fasting. And I have got to tell you this funny story. I was in ministry at a private girls' school. I first started as a chaplain. And my reverend sister, Viniana Ravatali, most magnificent ministry woman who I learned so much about ministry from, Vinny would say to me, we're coming into a period of Lent. So Lent is just prior to Passover. Prior to Easter, the Easter narrative, which is Passover. Yep. And so we do 6 weeks leading up to Jesus's death and resurrection, which coincides often with Passover for you guys. And I love it. It's a really sacred, most precious time of the year on the Christian calendar for us. Anyway, Vinny would fast, and lots of Christians do. She would do periods of fasting through Lent. And now she would do you'll love this, Alan, not just 25 hours. She did 6 weeks, and she is a coffee drinker. 6 weeks of no coffee and no meat for 6 weeks. They were her two things. And I tried to give up swearing. I thought, what I'll do. Yeah. Vinny's giving up meat.
How did that work out for you?
Not great, brother. Not great. And I'm really.
It's got the 2 hours. It was pretty good.
And I sort of feel that I'm glad Jesus died for my sins, because I am a shocker when it comes to fasting on language or anything, quite frankly. I'm just not good. But I really understand how you described that, Leotine, because Vinny I would come into work and I'd say, I would forget that she was fasting, and I just really wanted my friend to come and have a coffee with me, quite frankly, before we started the day's work. I'd say, Vinny, can I get you a coffee? And she'd turn her chair around at me and she'd say, Ness, I'm fasting. Do not lead me astray. Reverend sister, she'd say. I'd say, oh my gosh, forgive me, Lord. I felt like I had to repent because I was drawing her into sinful, tempting her. Yeah. So it's a very serious time for us too when it comes to fasting. I've got to get better at that. I must ask you more about that in future. Maybe we can do a whole pod on fasting, because I think I would just totally struggle. I just say quite rudely to Vinny, oh, Vinny, I think God just forgives me because I'm just a loser when it comes to fasting. I think God will ask other things of me. She says often, oh, Reverend sister, you are bad. You are bad. So fasting, you get to, how long does Yom Kippur last? Is it a period
it's from when the sun goes, it's an hour before the sun goes down, until the next day when the sun goes down.
And
so it's 25 hours?
25 hours. And is it a period of time in weeks, or is it just that 125 hours?
It's that 125 hours. Yeah. There are other days of fasting in the Jewish religion. But this one, many Jews actually celebrate Yom Kippur. There are many others that many Jews don't. Of course, Orthodox, like religious, observant Jews, they will follow all the fasting days. Some fastings are from the morning until the evening, for instance. It depends, but otherwise, it's one full day. And there is no other fast in Judaism that is longer than 25 hours.
Yeah, it's a long time. And the Muslims fast at Ramadan, don't they? They do a
difference. So they fast for about a month, but they fast only when the sun is out. So they can eat during the evening and nights and early morning. Yeah. Very different.
Yeah, it is different. It's fascinating. And again, when I was at school teaching, I had a group of little Muslim girls that would fast in the day, and they would, was amazing. I was just in awe of how these little kids did what they did, and then they would go home and do big feasting at night. It was just fascinating. That must have been hard, watching all their other little friends of all other religions and faiths or no faith, eating lunch, eating their sandwiches and drinking their juices and stuff in the day. It must have been really tough for those little kids. Really, it's full on. It's most interesting how the faiths have similarities, isn't it? I think that's the thing that blew me away coming into Jerusalem City, old Jerusalem City, and seeing I was overwhelmed by seeing the Hasidic Jews. And I remember explaining and chatting to you and asking you all sorts of what now I understand is probably a bunch of really ignorant questions. Thank you for being so kind to me, Leo, and just you must have just wanted to bang your head go, oh, who is this stupid woman? I asked you some dumb questions, but I just didn't know. And it was so hard to want to ask you the questions without a filter because I don't know what is the right and wrong way to ask the question. So I just asked you anyway, and you were so...
Yeah, but you did well. You did well.
You were so kind. And for anybody listening, I'm telling you, if you've never been to Jerusalem, this is the woman to come and book in with, because it was just phenomenal. I learned so much about not only the Jewish faith, but how it intersects with my own faith as a Christian, and then how it intersects with the Muslim faith, because there we were in this city. And this is the thing that I think blew my mind, and I know it blows Rob's mind. Would you mind shutting the door back? Is that there we enter... I was staying up at Jaffa Gate, as you know, and as you come in, is that right? It's that Christian quarter as we first come in. Is that right, Leo?
Yes.
Yep. And then you come down, and for me, it felt chaotic and messy and a bit of argy-bargy and just off the charts. Wild. That's how it felt when I first got there. I think Rob was quite worried that I wouldn't.
I don't know how you'd cope. I've been there, blessed to be there a couple of times, and I thought, let's take you there for 3 days and see what you think.
Yeah.
Thinking, is she going to cope with this or not? But
yeah.
No.
I suffer from anxiety, and on this podcast I talk a lot about mental health, and I really suffer from anxiety. And the interesting part, I'd packed. My doctor had given me prescription for all sorts of things in case I lost my shit on this trip and wasn't coping. She said, "Don't worry, Vanessa, take some of these, and you'll if you need it, just take it, and you can just calm your farm." Anyway, I didn't take a thing. It was just extraordinary, and I'm so grateful, Leo. I don't think you really understand, because you made me feel so safe, and I think God was all around. I'm really aware of that, but you just held space for me so well. And I've now found out, because I've read on your podcast, you were a social worker, and I'm thinking, God directed me to you. You were like that. Now I'm crying again. You're like the perfect human for me.
And I think every day, actually. Each time I have a little doubt, Vanessa, can you tell me how?
You were so pastoral, so lovely and kind to me. And for anybody that's an anxious traveler, Leo, you need to probably put that on your website.
Okay.
Expertise in anxious travelers.
You don't want that many of them, do you?
Oh, you don't want
no, not another one. Oh.
You don't want too many crazies, Leo. Yeah, that's
okay.
But it was just
beautiful. To Alan. I'll send
you palm them off to Alan.
Yeah.
Crazy song.
That's why I didn't look in with you.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Incredible. But just that whole walking through Old Jerusalem city and the different quarters, the Christian quarter, the Jewish quarter, the Muslim quarter, and then the Armenian quarter. And you explained that. Could you unpack that a little bit for our listeners and people that have not been and experienced Jerusalem? Because Robert talked about it to me, but I didn't really understand. And can you unpack why the city is set up this way?
Sure. So, well, first of all, what I always like to explain is that the old city is very small. It's like a mile by a mile, basically. And it is the old city. This is where what was Jerusalem for many, many, many centuries. But it is not where the biblical Jerusalem was born. That is somewhere else. So that's the first thing that I really want to explain to people, so that they get a sense of, because when you don't say that, people feel that they're walking where it all started. That's not where it started. Right. And that's, we went there, the city of David. But the old city of Jerusalem is part of the extended biblical Jerusalem. very small, and this was Jerusalem until the mid-1800s. So Jerusalem was, all this time when it was so important in history, it was still a tiny, tiny, tiny city. And over the centuries, it has been occupied by different nations, you could say, and also different religions. And that is how we got to 4 different quarters that, by the way, have moved over the centuries. So at one point where the Jewish quarter was, now it was more the Muslim quarter, and the Jewish quarter was somewhere else. But anyway, now we have already since a long time, hundreds of years, these 4 quarters where they are today. But you walk, it's very small, first of all, and you walk freely from one quarter to another. So it's not, there's no border or checkpoint or whatever. But you do feel there is a very specific feeling to each quarter. So it's, once you understand the history of the quarter, you can actually know, but you can feel by yourself when you're alone, this is the Christian quarter, because this is the Jewish quarter, because it's all new. And this is the Armenian quarter, because only walls that I see here, etc. So now this was Jerusalem, as I said, until the mid-1800s. It's only in the mid-1800s that people started to live outside the city wall of the old city. So the first neighborhood was created like 1860 outside the old city, and then other neighborhoods were built, and then they were gradually growing and started to touch each other, you could say. And this is how Jerusalem grew until now we are a city with about 1 million people, almost 1 million people. So it means that the old city is tiny. If you look at the map, you see the old city, it's like a fingertip compared to the rest.
I like to say you have three Jerusalems. You have the ancient city of David, the ancient Jerusalem, which was to the south, and it shifted up to the north, which became the old city. And then it grew, expanded outside the old city walls to what today we would refer to as New Jerusalem. Ancient, old, new.
That ancient, old, and new. Yeah, that's a great way of describing it, Alan. I loved the city, old city of Jerusalem. I loved that because it was my first foray into that Middle Eastern culture, and to feel that. But what I loved the most, and I said this to you, Leo, was the ancient stuff that we saw, the real things. So the city of David, can you, and then understanding the topography of the land. So when you took me up to the Mount of Olives and we got to, that was such a clever way to start, by the way. And I know you know that's a no-brainer, but I think for us, it was just epic, wasn't it, Rob?
To look back and see this expanse of the old city
and how it,
and the topography.
Yes. Yeah. And then for me, it just came alive, because then to understand certainly all the biblical narrative of the New Testament and all that last 24 hours of Jesus's life, for me, and Easter is such a pivotal part of our liturgy and what we celebrate in our year, a little bit like Yom Kippur is critical to your faith. Easter is critical for the Christian, as you well know, and to understand what Jesus went through. And as a Jewish woman, Leo, you smashed that out of the ballpark, sister. You told me stuff. You were, in my excitement and overwhelm, you were able to guide me to parts of the Bible when I was lost. And you were just amazing, you know. That was just fantastic. And then intersect it with your Jewish narrative as well. So it was just, it was just gold for me. It was just gold. And being able to look back, and I've preached so many years on the story of Jesus coming into the city, and you showed me the Eastern Gate, and explained to me about the Eastern Gate, that we look at from the Mount of Olives, where the Messiah will come again. Yes, where the Messiah will come, and you explained how the Muslims have actually bricked. Are they who bricked it in?
Mm-hmm. Yes, so they rolled it. Yes,
rolled it in. But you can. What's beautiful is you can still see it. You can still see those archways of where that's going to happen, and then to look upon that. And to think, for me, it was like, wow, Jesus walked in through there into the city. And I've preached on that so many times. It's never going to be the same again for me when I preach that come Easter. Come March next year, I'm going to be, because I can see it in my brain now. I only just haven't read about it at university and felt the spirit. I've actually seen it in the real, and you just helped bring that alive. And I don't think I realised, Leo, how beautiful Gethsemane was.
Mm.
You know, I don't think the Bible does a terrific job at unpacking it. Those boys didn't unpack it with such beauty. It's far more beautiful than I'd imagined.
Mm.
And I felt, and it was a stinking hot day we were there. It was like in the 30s, wasn't it? And I just felt and imagined what it would be like in the cool of the night there.
Yeah.
And
the olive trees, the pomegranates,
and
figs.
It was like
so
an orchard of exotic, not a boring apple tree to be found. Or a mango tree. I'm sure you guys, do you have mangoes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good mangoes, but not in Jerusalem. In Yeah.
They were just it's very different topography than I imagined. And then to actually go down to the city of David, I think that was my most favorite. Can you talk about that a little bit? Because I think one of the big exotic moments for me was when you took us, because I was too scared to go into the Hezekiah's tunnels, which I remember you being quite surprised about, because you said to me, Vanessa, we usually take everybody wants to go into the tunnels. And I'm going, no, sister, no, I can't do a tunnel. You're going, really? I'm sure those tunnels are just unbelievable, but I would have to be sedated, I reckon, to go into that.
But it was good because we didn't go to the tunnels, so I could show you a lot more that we don't see when we go to the tunnels. So, like you said, the maybe tombs of King David and King Solomon.
Yeah,
that's who knows if they this you don't see when you go into the tunnels. You have it's too far from each other and so on. The synagogue that they found the synagogue right next to it with a sign even saying this is a synagogue. So I think if you don't go into the tunnels, that's okay. It's not you saw something really precious. So the city of David is the old biblical Jerusalem. We know that the city, from archaeology, that there was already a city there in about 6,000 years before the year 0. And in the Bible it says that David, as a young king, he takes the city from the Canaanites, and then he makes it his capital. And I always say, by doing so, he puts Jerusalem on the map. This is where Jerusalem becomes a really important city. And so he makes it his capital. And then he buys a mountain that was north of his city, which today we call it the Temple Mount, and his son Solomon will build there the temple, the Jewish temple. So the city of David is very important because Israel managed to excavate the city of David, even at some points going under houses of people, because people were living there and didn't want to move, which is understandable. So they went under the ground. And as the city of Jerusalem, it has been destroyed almost 30 times in its history, if you want to look for the remnants of that period, you need to go down in the ground anyway, because each time the city was destroyed, they would build this new city on top of it, and then it was destroyed, and so they wouldn't take out the rubble and then build. They would build on top of the rubble. So basically, at the city of David, where the city of David, the old Jerusalem was, they went down into the ground and started to excavate, and we saw the base of the palace of King David and King Solomon. We saw the entrance to the water tunnel. That we didn't go inside, but we saw where it was, where they channeled the water into the city. What was it, about 700 years before the year 0? We saw a very strange structure that maybe was the tomb of David and Solomon, because it says in the Bible that when they died, they were buried in their city. They're
both bumper to bumper next to each other. That's the thing. It's just so obvious to me that just is a no-brainer. And you explained that their palace was just sort of around, a little bit further up and around. We walked from there down and around and up the hill.
People don't realize there are hills, man. I mean, it's just a hill. Oh, no, these guys would have been in shape running around these hills, man. Let me tell you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you have to be.
My father, who thank God is still alive, he says Jerusalem is the only city in the world where you walk uphill in both directions.
There's always a hill ahead of you, man. You're right.
Oh shit! Yeah. Really, Leo? Yeah. Are we going further uphill? And you just power on in your little hiking boots like a champion.
Amazing. What I found amazing was I didn't really grasp that the walls we currently see in the old city, as you showed us, Leo, they actually originally in Jesus' time were down into the valley around the city of David, right? And that was quite an eye-opener. And I think you got to realize that city's down there. And if you go to Jerusalem, there's the current walled city, but my gosh, there's this fantastic archaeological excavation going on. And what was the pools? The ritual bathing pool.
Oh, can you talk about that, Leo? So, after we went and saw what they believe could be the tombs of David and Solomon on the site of where they lived and their synagogue next door. There, can you talk about the pools?
Yeah. The Siloam pools. You want
to talk about? Please. I want to go on a tour. One of your tours. I'm enjoying this so much.
So yes, they So first of all, in Judaism, ritual washing is very important still today. We do still ritual washing at certain moments of the week, of the day, in your life. It depends. And this was already the case in the ancient times when the Jewish temple was still standing there. And many Jews would come from abroad or from other cities in Israel to come to the temple for worship and for sacrifice and for blessings and so on. But in the temple, there were 2 rooms. And in the the back room, you could say, was the Holy of Holies, in which was the tabernacle, the Ark of the Covenant, yes, which is basically the presence of God. So, of course, if you want to come close to that, you need to be cleansed mentally, also physically. And so the idea is that you immerse yourself into water. So baptism comes from this, of course. So you immerse yourself into water. So as for certain Jewish holidays, there would be thousands of people that would come. So one bath is not enough. So they built many ritual baths all around the temple and the Temple Mount, so that people would cleanse and then walk clean, you could say, up to the temple. Now, the Siloam pool is located at the southern tip of the city of David. It means that you have to look at the topography, because the temple itself is at the northern tip of the city of David. So it means that if you are a tourist coming from anywhere, you arrive sweaty and you have all your sorrows and worries and money problems on your mind. You want to cleanse, so you enter the city. You enter a huge pool. It was huge. We have discovered it, and now we can see how big it is.
They're excavating more of it. So you would have seen the current excavation.
Yeah. It's like a big pool, basically. It's huge. So people would immerse into the water then to prove that they had been into the water, because then they had a big walk to do to go up to the temple. They got a coin that was the proof that they had been in the water, and then they started walking up on a street with steps towards the temple. And then arriving at the temple, there was probably somebody who would ask for the coin, and then you could continue. Now we know this because in the streets there was a gutter system underneath. So you had holes in the street. So when they were cleaning the street, if it was raining, the water would go down into the gutter. And in the gutter, during excavations, they found some of these coins. So that is how we know this. Now, why is this important? Why is Siloam pool important? Because it's mentioned in the New Testament.
Yeah.
When Jesus, during the last week of his life, when he's there, there are a few miracles that will take place. He will heal an invalid man at Bethesda pools. And we've been there also, right? Yes. And he will heal a blind man who has to go to the Siloam pool, and there he has to take some mud, spit on it, put it on his eye, and and then he will see again. So the pool is actually mentioned in the New Testament, and so, and we know from writings of history writer who lived about 2,000 years ago, who also described the city. And we know that everything he wrote, almost everything he wrote, we found actual archaeological proof.
Wow.
So the Bible, so the Old Testament, the writings of this man, Josephus Flavius was his name.
Oh, Josephus.
Yeah. Then the actual archaeological excavations, when you put everything together and you find that what is written in the Bible and what was written by Josephus, it actually matches what the archaeologists found. That's what you have experienced, and that's the Siloam pool.
And that pool was just, I was so overwhelmed down there, because I felt like that was as close as I could get to the original city in the day, thousands of years before, and to be able, and how they've started to excavate under the road all the way then up to the temple. And I was I walked up a little way, but I was too scared to go any further because I'm claustrophobic and I'm a bit crazy.
Well, that was a bummer.
But that was just extraordinary. But you can take that all the way up the hill. And it would have been quite cool and beautiful underneath there. We chose to go in the heat outside. And
I think what was amazing.
Sorry about that, Leo.
You mentioned all the rubble
and
how the city's, I guess, been destroyed and built upon. But that excavation, it's quite amazing how big that street walk was. You took from one side to the other, and you realize this was almost like a boulevard, if you will, with shops and line all the way up the hill.
And markets.
It would have been a magnificent city, in its day, so to speak, in that time.
It was.
Well, you can imagine on the three main holidays where Jews, Jesus included, were coming to Jerusalem for Passover or Shavuot, which is Pentecost, or coming for Sukkot to bring sacrifice. It was like coming to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And arriving first to that the Siloam pool to bathe, and then to check into your Airbnb in the old city of ancient city of the city of David, and then you go up to the temple. So it's just it just comes a lot.
And it was actually geared for this. I mean, these streets so wide. I'm thinking, my gosh. Then we were at over Damascus Gate, and we saw what that street would originally look like. Now it's quite narrow, right? Because it's been rebuilt. But in those days, it was epic.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Yeah. Just beautiful. I am a bit dirty with you, Leo, and I need to because I've been listening to Yalla Israel, your podcast, and I thought I'd seen all the things that I needed to see in Jerusalem. So I'm coming back. I'm coming back, sister, because I remember sitting with you in the Austrian hospice. We went there for beautiful coffee. I think you knew that I was hot and I needed a caffeine fix, and to sit in the strudel.
Yes. Austrian hospices, they must stop everyone.
Yes.
They must stop multiple times.
Yeah, don't tell everybody about it. They try and keep it on the down low because it was
for lunch.
It's
not open for breakfast. So.
And there was a couple of things I was so excited because God comes to me in signs and wonders. Do you believe in signs and wonders? Does the Jewish faith talk about signs and wonders, or is that just a New Testament thing? Signs and wonders. Signs and
wonders. God speaking to us every day. I mean, you have to pay attention. You have to listening.
So great. So I hear the voice of God, and I had asked God when I didn't know much about God and I didn't believe in God, because I only came to faith in my mid-20s, and I didn't grow up in a Christian home. I didn't grow up with any of that faith stuff around me. And I've got quite a story, but God had to come to me in a quite a dramatic way, I think, to grab my attention, because I was a bit thick. I think it was probably that. And I asked for a sign. And you're going to kill yourself when you hear this, Leo. I asked for a sign, and the Christian woman that I was with said, well, God will meet you wherever you are, Vanessa, and you can ask God anything. Nothing's too big for our Lord. And I said, well, okay then. And I said, well, God, and I prayed to God, this mystery God that I thought in the day. I prayed and I said, Lord, if you're real, I want you to show me a pure white fluffy cat with blue iridescent eyes and a big white fluffy tail.
Okay.
And my story goes that this incredible cat that I'd lived in this street my whole life just appeared. I'd never seen a cat like it in my life. It was like a cat that you'd see on a perfect cat food advertisement on TV, one of those cats that nobody ever owns one of those cats. They're just I don't know, pretend. But this bloody perfect white cat with blue eyes jumps out on a path, meows at me. And if it could have had its hands on its hips, it would have. And it kind of said to me, so what are you going to do about this now, Vanessa? It was like that. It was so overt. I actually came to the Lord through this white fluffy cat. I know.
I understand. Okay.
Crazy out there. So crazy woman right now. You're coping really well with this, guys. You're coping really well. But I need to tell you this, Leo, and this is going to make some sense. So there we are in Jerusalem. I have a cat thing. I suffer from anxiety, deep anxiety. And God comes to me through cats whenever I'm anxious. And I'm in the city of Jerusalem, and there's these bloody cats everywhere. And I was feeling anxious when you took us into the hospice that day, and I was really glad just to get away and just to have a little bit of a breather to regroup my mind. And I don't think I really expressed to you what was going on. I was just busy coping. And these bloody cats start meowing at my legs.
Yes.
Weren't they? And you're looking in horror at why I'm touching these feral little things. And I didn't care because they were cats. And I felt like God was saying to me, it's okay, Vanessa. it's okay. We're in the holy city. I'm all around it. Everything's all right. It was absolutely precious. But
very nice.
I have since heard in one of your podcasts how the cats actually came to the city. It sounds like a little bit like Venice, how there was a rat plague. Is that right? And the British brought the cats in?
The British, when the British arrived, they arrived not so long ago, about 100 years ago. And when they arrived, they found a very, very poor, filthy city with lots of mice and rats. And so they brought cats from England and Egypt, I think.
Yes, from Europe and
Egypt. And that's how we have the cats. But, we have a lot of people taking care of them, feeding them and so on. And I think also now and then they all go out and they catch them and they sterilize them. And...
Yeah, wow.
Yeah,
I heard that on your podcast. I was so thrilled to hear that. I thought,
you remember?
Well, God does not speak to me through cats, so I'm not a big cat lover. My wife adopted a cat outside of our house. She calls her Malka, which is queen in Hebrew. She's the queen. You know what?
Yeah, I'm liking your wife.
Yeah, everybody likes his wife. She's pretty.
Yeah. So
and do you remember the cat of is it Uri or Uri? The Uri, who makes the pictures on the Cardo. You remember that you got yes. That is Lo Shelley.
Not mine. Udi on the Cardo.
Yeah. The cat is not mine. Lo Shelley.
Oh yes. So we went into the Jewish Quarter, and Udi, a beautiful artist. If you just pass me that, Rob, I bought some of his most gorgeous artwork, and I've just got so many beautiful pieces that were his that I'm going to actually have framed. This one, The Lion and the Lamb. I've been talking about courage in my sermons at the moment. I'm doing a series on courage, and I love this, The Lion and the Lamb. His artwork is beautiful, and if you travel with Leo, she'll take you down to meet Udi.
Beautiful man.
Gorgeous, gentle man, and he has his cat out of the front of his it was very clever. It's like a lure. Well, it lured me in, definitely, because there's this beautiful old 20-year-old cat laying there that he loves. It was just precious. So for me, it was just, again, another sign. And I felt really peaceful there, as you probably could tell. It was just, I'm just so grateful for you, Leo. I'm just so grateful that you guided us in such a sensitive, gentle way, and you coped with my questions and my naive ignorance about the intersection of Judaism and the Muslim faith and the Christian faith, and you just handled my questions so well, and your knowledge was just off the charts. I came back and I was explaining in a podcast that we filmed last week that I feel like my cup has been filled up, and you were a part of that. I felt so filled up by the experience of having been there, and I would just encourage anybody that's listening that to save up and to head to the Holy City and book a tour and do the thing, because it's a game changer. It really is. It's so holy and so precious for all our faiths, isn't it? And that section, it is really precious. And I never even had time to go up to Temple Mount. I didn't have time to do that. I was probably more obsessed with the Wailing Wall and understanding why the Jews love going down to those stones. I never understood why you would go and pray at stones, and how you explained. And again,
take through that.
Have you got time to take us through that and the proximity of how Temple was originally set up from east to west? Because that to me that was just an eye-opener to understand that.
Yes. So the temple was built on top of a mountain, a rock, basically. And it was built like all the temples were built in those days, with the entrance to the east. So there, where the sun comes up, the entrance was towards the east. And then, as I said, it was a rectangular building with a courtyard and then 2 rooms. And the back room, I don't know if you can say it like that, but the back room, the last room, that's where the Holy of Holies was, where was the Ark of the Covenant. So it means that room was actually facing west, the other side. Now, the mountain will be enlarged about 2,000 years ago, a little bit more than 2,000 years ago, during the reign of King Herod the Great. He enlarges the mountain and also enlarges and makes much more beautiful the temple. It becomes like one of the wonders in the world that was covered with gold and silver and so on. And he built around the mountain a wall. Okay, so the mountain is basically packed inside a wall on the 4 sides. That temple will be destroyed in the year 70 after the year 0 by the Romans. And that will be the end of the physical Jewish presence on top of the mountain. And from that time on, it will become very complicated for Jews to go to that mountain to pray there. It's complicated for many different reasons. Now, part of the retaining wall around the mountain remained. And according to who was in power in the land of Israel, or Palestine, it depends what time we're talking about, but depending on who was in power, Jews could come to a little piece of the western wall that was on the western side of the mountain, surrounding the mountain, to come and pray, to pray as close as they could to where once the temple used to be and where the Holy of Holies used to be. And that is what is the western wall. So and today it's 40 meters. And the wall itself is 500 meters long, so it's a very small little piece. That's we talked about it in one of our more recent podcasts. We call it the Western Wall, in fact, but over the years it has become the Wailing Wall. It is the place where Jews come to commemorate that this is where the temple was, and it has become basically a synagogue. Without a roof. That's how synagogue with a roof. So Jews come there to pray and to dance and to sing and to study and to meet. But not only Jews, anybody can come there. And basically you can also you prayed there, and so it's there. So that's what now today Jews can go closer to where the temple used to be. So there are you couldn't go there because you don't like tunnels, but you can go into a tunnel and get closer to where the temple used to be. You can also go, like you said, you can go to the Temple Mount itself and walk around where the temple used to be. But basically the Wailing Wall, the Western Wall, has become the place where Jews go to pray and remember that the temple used to be there and not far.
It was.
And it's very intense to be there. It's very
wasn't it? I found it to be very intense. Actually, it was. I wasn't expecting the intensity of what happened when I was there, but I really encourage people to go there, and I think going with a Jewish guide is probably even more powerful because you just explained it so well, and I there's a nuance to the way that you described and set it alive for me. It was just really precious, and to give me time and space to actually go and take the prayers that I'd brought from home from people and put them into the wall, and to be around Jewish folk all around me, women, because of course, Rob went to the other side, and to be able to pray. I just wished I'd had a scarf to put over my head. I felt really rude. I felt really not, I was very conservatively dressed, but I felt like I wanted to, there was like this innate sense that I wished I'd covered my head, and I didn't. I didn't have a scarf to cover my head, and I'd packed one, and I just didn't bring it that day.
Yeah.
And I that's my only regret about that. I wished I'd done that, because it was just like an intense, I don't know, an innate feeling to do that. It was really unique, actually, because I've not felt that feeling before. Yeah, it was just beautiful. So I'm just so grateful. And I'm grateful for your time. In our show notes, we will put all your details about both of you as tour guides, and also Yalla Israel.
It's really amazing too.
Podcast, and we'll push out all your details onto our podcast so people can actually find you, and Jonty will do links on there, so you'll see that. And I've been talking, we filmed just the other week on my trip to Israel. It was funny, Leo. I said to Jonty, I've prepared this message that I want our listeners to hear about the last 24 hours of Jesus. And he said, great, Ness, do that, and we can put photos in, and for anybody that actually watches us as well and doesn't only just listen. And he said, yeah, that's great. And we started, and I never even got to the last 24 hours because it was so much content. And so I think I could talk for about a week on all the different elements of Jerusalem, and I've only just seen a snippet. So we'll be back, won't we, Rob?
Absolutely.
We'll be back again. I feel like I've got, I've started a lifelong friendship with you. Well, I feel like that. I don't know if you feel like that, but I've adopted you.
I like to be adopted.
Yeah, it's just incredible. I think, so thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
This is a prayer for the people who want to give up, who have been hurt beyond repair and cannot bear to see